Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of the Microsoft 365 Business Boost. I'm not sure. We haven't updated the graphic for this yet, Thurman, and we really need to change that Microsoft 365 logo to the Microsoft 365 Copilot logo so that we can be equally confusing as everywhere else that we're talking about Microsoft 365. But anyhow, how's your week going?
Good. I cannot complain. I'm knee deep in supporting customers. You know what I mean? So, life is good. What about you?
Well, everything's good. I mean, I'm pretty busy right now, but there was something that came up that made me think about what should I talk with Thurman about this week.
What is that? What came up?
So, I think I always share an opinion, right? And I think you're the same in this, that you share an opinion. You like to be fairly opinionated in what you like about SharePoint, what you don't like about SharePoint, and what you think should be the processes that people should follow. And some people probably like that and they become your customers, and some people probably don't like that and they decide to shop elsewhere for their SharePoint services. And that's okay. That's what we want.
It is.
But I've been in a few technical meetings this week with other contractors where I've seen advice that's being given, which hasn't really been advice. It's been technical information without any opinion that could help the client to get from A to B, and then throwing back on the client, a non-technical person, this decision point of, well, I've given you option A, option B, option C, that makes perfect sense to me or the other party as a technical person, but they've got no basis to make that decision. And looking around, extrapolating from this, looking at, a lot of the technical content that's out there that sometimes doesn't share an opinion on whether something is good or bad, or whether you should use it, or how you introduce it into your workflow, but really just, this is what got introduced, and that's it. And it seems like this is really overwhelming, potentially. I know it overwhelms some of my clients when they get faced with this, and frankly, that's the reason that sometimes people will bring me on board to do technical projects with them, because I can stand in the middle of that for them. But more broadly, if you're trying to follow along with all of this, how do you sift out the stuff that is just kind of hype versus the stuff that's actually relevant to you and can be beneficial to you in your business?
Yeah, I think it comes from knowing what your customer wants. Nick, I gotta tell you, I try to let my work speak for me, but a lot of times I roll with how, like, the way that I interact with my customer, I feel is one of my superpowers. I just think I'm really good at that, because I don't go in there with what is the word? I don't even know. I don't walk in there with the intent, with a predetermined intention. It's never that. It's always, I need them to dictate to me what the deal is. For instance, this week, a friend of mine is getting ready to start a podcast, and he needed some information, some technical information about, like where to host it and all this stuff. And he asked a few questions, and one of his questions was, and if you got any tips, any best practices, can you lend those to me? And I said, all right. I went through a bunch of other stuff, but then I said, tell me what the podcast is about. Like, why are you doing it? What's the purpose of this podcast? And he told me. And then I relayed the information, because I don't know what you want. I cannot recommend to you what you should do if I don't know what you want. If you're talking about, hey, should I do video or audio podcasts or both? Well, actually, even that's like some opinionated, that's an opinion. But for the most part, during today, people do audio and they do video as a podcast. That's just a thing. It's just it's where the market has gone. So you don't really have to ask me. Huh?
We only do video.
We only do video. That's correct.
Maybe we should start doing audio. Maybe this is the opportunity to.
We don't have to. The point is.
That's your opinion.
Yes. Now, you know what I'm saying? That's what I let him know, because I needed to know first what he wanted to do. What was he trying to do? And I think it's like a book tour involved, and and he has a book and he wants to sell, this is the type of advice that I gave him, because I need to know that stuff first. Like, what is your intention? Then I can make the recommendation. To your point about being overwhelmed, like placing technical decisions back on a non-technical person.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my wife on the spot here. You know what she does? She looks up dresses and things that she wants to wear, right? And then she comes and asks me, hey, do you like this dress? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong person. Like, this is too much for me to bear, because unless I see you in the dress, I don't have an opinion on this dress just sitting here by itself. I don't know. You're showing it to me either on a model or not on a model. I can't give you any advice. So
you know what the answer to that is, Thurman? What you say is, I doubt they carry that in my size.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't wear damn dresses, so I don't know what the answer is here. You know what I'm saying? But that's immediately what I thought of when you said putting it back on the non-technical person is overwhelming, because I don't get overwhelmed easily. But at that point, I'm overwhelmed because you're asking me to do something I have zero idea how to do. You want me to pick a dress? I don't know how to pick a dress. You know what I'm saying? So I totally get the the comparison to, making a non-technical person feel overwhelmed. We shouldn't, as consultants, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And, I think you could almost be distracted by all of this noise. I'll often work with people who obviously are interested in AI. And I mean, people will sit on a spectrum of how interested they are, but the small business owners who are more likely to work with someone like me are going to be those who are really interested in it. But even in that being really interested and wanting to know all about it, they can become really overwhelmed in, there's this model and that model. Should I be using Claude? Should I be using DeepSeek? Should I be using ChatGPT? And they can find it refreshing to get an opinionated answer. And that's not to say my opinionated answer is necessarily going to be right all the time. Like, there's the potential in there for missing something, for not getting the best answer. But I think having a route to go down, having a direction that you're actually moving in, can often be a lot more productive, even if it's not quite the right route, than just standing and spinning around and looking at all the different options.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the best way for a business owner or a decision maker inside of the business, the best way for you to know if this person is giving you good advice, or the if it aligns, is like, does this person know what you want? Do they have a clear idea of what you want, even if you don't know what you want? If you said something like, and this is my experience, if the business owner says something like, well, I was looking at this option and that option, I don't really know, which one is best. And then I say something like, well, tell me what you're trying to do. And then they say something that's like vague. They go, well, I don't really know what we should do really when it comes to X, Y, and Z. They're talking about their strategy at this point. Now, no more tech. At this point, now it's about options. Because then I go, okay, well, option one, if you do decide to go with that choice that you were talking about, you can do these things with that option. Option two, you said you might be thinking about going this way. If your thought process is to go that way, then maybe you should think about this option, this tech solution, that type of stuff. This is the dance that you have to do with a potential client. But what's at the root of that is knowing what they want. If that, and again, this is to a business owner I'm speaking to and a decision maker, if that consultant doesn't have a good idea of what you want, how can they recommend something good? Like, I don't see how you can't be opinionated. Like when you go to a restaurant. Right. So when you go to a restaurant, right? I do this a lot. Matter of fact, I just did it last week. I said, tell me about this brulee right here. Like, what is this? And the first thing out of this guy's mouth, the waiter, he goes, well, it's not my cup of tea, but let me explain it to you. And then he says, the very first thing was, it's not my cup of tea. I don't hear anything else after that. If you are, which I respect, that you're being honest and telling me it's not your cup of tea, there's a potential that it could be my cup of tea. Absolutely. But I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. how this dish is even designed. And if you go, it's not my cup of tea, then I'm out. I'm gonna try to find something else. So having an opinion is good, unless you know you're supposed to be reporting on the news. Then you need to keep your opinion out of things. But I'm into the opinion. And
Yeah,
then
I mean, the thing is, Thurman, like if we just take the context of Microsoft 365, there's a lot there, right? And you can be kind of spinning around in circles thinking, well, I have to use it all. I have to get my money's worth out of it. But a lot of the time, you can get your return on investment out of something like that just by having clarity as to how you're going to use parts of it. And the goal shouldn't be to, maximize the usage. The goal should be to maximize the return. And that maximal return can come from just using one or two things, but getting a really slick level of kind of penetration of using that. So it's just like a second nature to everyone in your business to do that, as opposed to constantly moving from tool to tool to tool because you think that you're paying for all of this. And I think, we talked last week, I think, or the week before when we did the last episode, about this idea of new things coming along and where do these new things come from, and what are they actually responding to in terms of someone's needs. And all of these new features that you see promoted or people talk about and so on and so forth, they are for someone, and there's probably someone sitting somewhere that's like, oh my goodness, that's that thing that we've been waiting for and genuinely is beneficial to them. But if it's not your thing, if it's not the dish in the restaurant that's going to be your cup of tea, then move on to the next thing. Don't worry about it. We can't eat everything on the menu. The menu's still going to be there next time we come back.
Yes, that's okay. So I like to say return on investment, maximize your investment. So what I'm thinking about there is not, like you said, that doesn't mean you need to be using every single tool. That means, think about how your business runs and what you need to, run business efficiently. And I'm paying for a tool. Can I use this tool to help me do this thing that I need to do for my business efficiently? Maybe I can do another thing. And now I'm like rocking and rolling. I have a process to use this tool to help me do business more efficiently. This is maximizing your investment. And maximizing your investment really comes from, again, it boils down to, what do you need? You know your business. It's not going to be like, hey, that tool does X, Y, and Z. Well, we need that tool. Cool. The first thing you actually need to know is your business. We do this in our business. We've been doing it a certain way. We need to do it a little bit more faster, a little better. How can we implement things like artificial intelligence, aka in Microsoft's environment, Copilot? Speaking of which, I need to put this out there too. There was a bit of a controversy on our show last year because I was not joining the the team of folks using Copilot. You know what I mean? That has since changed, and I'm now drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. And
oh my goodness!
The way I've been using it is, so I have like a detailed. I use it for business, and I have like a detailed document that talks all about my ideal client, right? My clients, what are they Googling? What their profile looks like, you know what I mean? And I have one like multiple page document sitting inside of a library right now with that information. My agent, I forgot what I called my agent, but my agent knows that information about my ideal client. So what I do is have my agent help me write posts, build scripts for YouTube, multiple things right now. I have found value in this thing. I'm very excited about how it works. It's pretty cool. But I'm still not ready to take it to my client because right now I don't have a client that seems to need that just yet. That's one. And then two, I again, matter of fact, that right there, I need a client to seem like they need a thing or they need a solution. And then I can bounce around in my head multiple solutions, but one of them can now be, this is how you would use agents with your data. You know what I mean? The data that you have sitting inside of libraries. That's one of the things I can now bring to the table and say, you know, this might be an option. And I just because I know it exists and now it's out there, I'm not going to lean in with that because Microsoft wants it. I'm sure they do, but that's not the way I approach, you know, when I'm consulting. It's all about the client is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I think that's so right, that even this new stuff that comes along, you know, it may be very exciting, but it has to be taken in context. I mean, one of the more recent videos that I've put out on YouTube was all about changes to SharePoint autofill columns, which is another AI feature, and looking at how does that really slot into this greater picture of now the prime AI is Copilot, but we've got these other AI features elsewhere across the suite. And I think having that context and having a viewpoint as to how that fits in more broadly is such an important thing, because you can't do everything, you know, and there are lots of different ways of achieving similar results. And finding the right one is going to come down to both understanding the technology and understanding the context. And we can't do either of those things in a vacuum. I think if you've just got the context but you don't have the solution, then you're just going to be really frustrated that you can't get there, or you're going to be working really hard, not working really smart, you know. But if you've just got the technology and it's like every new advance that comes along is the greatest thing since sliced bread until the next one comes along, and then that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, then what are you actually taking the time to think about how it fits to these different contexts and making it work? Think about adoption, you know, but like we cannot adopt product on the timeline that Microsoft or other companies like ChatGPT's advances or Claude's advances, or whichever company it may be. We cannot properly adopt these advances in companies on the timeline that these businesses put them out. And that is just the reality of doing thorough adoption for businesses.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you are the type that's like, you know, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and hey, customer, you need to know about this. I think that's a different role. I believe you might be in sales if that's what you do. You have, I guess, kind of like a working knowledge of the tool, but your goal is for the company to go out there and sell this thing, because obviously they developed it and they need to sell it and get it out there, because this is part of business. This is what you do. You sell things. So I believe maybe that is a salesperson who does that. They stay on the bleeding edge with a thing, and then they get sent out to sell this thing to companies, because, you know, this is what you got to do. But I think a consultant, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm interchanging or mincing words here or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing with words, but I know, in my opinion, maybe this is just an opinion, a consultant worth their salt is understanding what they're talking about before they try to integrate it with a business or convince the business that they might need it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Maybe that role that we're talking about, because what consultant is out here running around trying to get businesses to adopt a technology they don't know much about?
Well, I don't think it's so much that. I think the thing that I see that kind of frustrates me is wanting to put all the technology on the table, and without applying it to that context, saying to the business owner or the decision maker, okay, you need to make the decision on this. And that can just introduce too many questions. Like, I would rather see a suggestion of this is the best path. You know, and if that path doesn't seem to fit, you know, maybe it doesn't entirely fit, so you can put context in that of, I think this is the best path, but there are these others that you might go down, and this is why I think this is the best one. But just this kind of putting it on the person you're working with that isn't the technical expert to make that decision, I think can be problematic. But I think if you go broader than that, you know, like, obviously a lot of my time is spent as a consultant, but a good portion of my time is also now spent in terms of engaging with an audience where I have no specific knowledge of their needs, right? And you do the same thing. I mean, we talk to people, we don't know their specific needs. We have an idea in our mind of what our audience's needs are in doing a show like this. We have an idea as to who it's going to be, who's going to be watching this, but we don't know specifically. And yet we could spend our time just simply saying, well, look at this new technology, and now look at this new technology, and now look at this new technology. Or we could spend our time saying, we really like this because, and we don't really like this one so much because of this as well. And I think that the second is inherently more valuable, because if we've got it right as to who our audience is and who's watching this, then irrespective of not knowing their specific context, we're creating a message to them that should be more relevant.
Absolutely, 1000%. And yes, it boils down to knowing your customer, knowing your potential customer. Just period. I believe every single business needs an intranet. That's just a thing that I believe. But I do not enter every single consulting call with that leading, saying that it doesn't matter what you say to me right now, you need an intranet if you don't have one already. That is the thought process of a lot of people who have strong opinions about the thing that they might sell or market or whatever. I don't operate that way. Even though I bet if you gave me 5 minutes of you telling me what's going on with your business, I would say, well, yo, you can solve that problem with the internet. You can put everything right there. No problem. If you are not leaning in that direction, I'm not taking you there. Matter of fact, this a few clients ago, potential client, sorry, we had a call and they told me what they were looking to do. And it involved some internet stuff, but it also involved kind of doing like what do you call it? An assessment, like assessing their layout and then giving recommendations about where to go. Now, I think that this client did not have so much going on that we needed to assess and then rebuild. My thought process was, you probably should just start with your intranet, which is already existing. You just need to configure it differently, but it already exists. You can just now move everything there that's important and get rid of the other stuff that you don't really need. Whatever this process looks like. Now, I wasn't forceful with that. I listened to what they wanted. They sent me an email after the call and they said, yeah, we here's what we want to do. And it was the assessment thing. And I remember at the end of that email, I said, all right, that's not a problem. We could definitely do that. I just want to make sure I put it out there that while I'm not trying to fit my square peg in your round hole or something like that, I said in the email, I just want to make sure that I want to let you know that if you set your intranet up first, then all these other things are way easier. But this is how much I would charge to do the thing that you've asked. I haven't heard anything from them, a thing at all. And I'm okay with that, because I think what happened is, I don't know if I didn't word it right or something like that, that maybe they think that I was trying to force them to go down that hole, but I wasn't. I just want to make sure that I put it out there that you know that you want to lay a good foundation and then build on top of that foundation. And I'm okay with if they were like, no, we feel like, we need to go in this other direction, because it's like, you have that choice. That is totally your independent choice. But something tells me, I'm just saying, I think that they're going to come back around eventually without me doing any follow-ups.
But you are a product, right? I mean, in that capacity, you are a product. I am a product. And in the same way that Microsoft Loop might not be the best product for all people, my service is not the best product for all people. And it's as simple as that. Like, you're not going to get a 100% fit. And if you try to get this 100%, like, I don't want to use service providers that are going to remodel their entire service to make me their customer. Right. Like that, I can see that you might adapt a little bit, you're going to change a little bit, you're going to change, like very often I'll look at a client and say, okay, well, where your starting point on Copilot, for example, is different than the standard for my adoption package. So I'm going to change things around a little bit. I'm going to alter the workshops. I'm going to split it up in a slightly different way that's going to work better for you. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. But if a client came to me and said, well, we're thinking about Copilot, but we're also thinking about buying a Formula One racing team, and I was like, okay, well, I could deal with either of those. Tell me which one you want to be adopted onto. That doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to give my best when I'm doing something that I know, number one, I know nothing about, and number two, isn't what I've decided to spend my life doing, So right. I think this idea of you're gonna bend and you're gonna bend and you're gonna bend, it's not a good thing. Like sometimes a client is gonna walk away, or a potential client is going to walk away because you weren't a good fit for one another, and that's fine. That's not a problem. In the same way that you're not going to use all the different products that are there. But I am going to change my opinion on this a little bit, Thurman. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a moment, because you just got me thinking about earlier on, I was sharing something on LinkedIn about Microsoft allowing end users to sign up for Microsoft 365 Copilot directly without their organization becoming involved. And just an aside to this, if you haven't disabled self-service licenses within your tenant and you're worried about that, go and do it. I have a post on LinkedIn that you can look at on how to do it. But someone was very upset about this and said something about it was like disrespecting admins, and I had something I said back about that. But the end result was, well, wouldn't I agree that what we should do is always work for the customer? Are we working for the customer? And in that regard, we're saying, okay, the customer is the enterprise, and if we're just letting their workers sign up for themselves, and therefore exposing data potentially in a way that we wouldn't want, then we're not working for the customer, we're working for ourselves. And it got me thinking as to, within these conversations, who is ultimately the customer? Because when you get into these like larger organizations, often, I enjoy speaking with the very excited business owner who has been playing with AI and now wants to lock things down with Copilot. That's a very nice conversation, But sometimes I'll go into a slightly bigger organization and I'll be talking to like an IT director, a CIO, and they will have a different perspective on things than the CEO who's very excited about AI sometimes. And this idea of just turning on a feature and letting it roll, whether that's the licensing for a user being able to sign up for themselves, or whether it's turning on Microsoft Loop, or all of these things that we talked to turn on flexible sections, all these things that we've talked about and maybe we're not such big fans of between us. But the counterpoint is, if you don't just turn these on and give the customer access to them, then you create this list for your IT department or your IT service provider that might have entirely different incentives to the group that's going out and doing the work with these products. You just give them a backlog of things to work through and find a reason to turn them on. Whereas if you turn them on and you give access to them, then your IT provider has to come up with a good reason to turn them off again. And so it changes that conversation a little. So I just thought of that as kind of related to what you're saying there of, this idea of, well, you get the entire, I guess it's the entire menu. We're opening up the entire menu and letting people form an opinion on it, rather than striking some things out before we start by saying, oh, well, I know Thurman, I know he's not going to like the creme brulee, so I'm just going to take that off the menu to begin with. Never give you the option to try it. I mean, do you see the connection there?
Well, before I even go there, let me get this straight. Because I'm confused. Are you saying that I am an employee inside of an organization?
Yes.
And the organization has not made Copilot available to us?
Yes.
But I can through my organizational account
Yes.
and through my own credit card,
Yes.
I can sign up to use Copilot within the organization's tenant?
Yes, and not just Copilot. There are now 23 different products that you can do this with, including Windows 365, including, I think, Project, a whole bunch of them.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, in this particular one, I don't think it's a good idea. But in general,
for Project and all the rest of them, I totally get that.
why? Why is Copilot different?
Because Project doesn't expose you. How does?
But
Project doesn't.
But it does expose you. It does expose you in a way, because you get someone who's sitting there who's like, I really want Project. And they do their job for 18 months, paying for Project themselves, and then they get a better offer and they leave. And suddenly all the work that person has done is locked down in Project that you don't want to pay for. And so it does expose you, but it exposes you in an entirely different way, because no one else has the skill to use Project. They've not learned how to use Project. You don't have any management of Project in your organization. You don't know how to access the assets or use the assets that are in Project. So is it the same risk? No. But is it a risk? Certainly.
But wait. Are you saying that if I turn on Project for the organization and I grant this person a license,
yes,
this is different if they go and pay for it themselves and use? Why are they allowed to pay for it on their own but use it within the context of my tenant? Is that what you're saying they can do?
Yes, that's what I'm saying they can do. I believe Project is on the list. I don't think I have I don't have an account open that I can pull up this view on and get all the.
But even if, let's say it's not Project, whatever they turn off and on.
Yes.
Why give an employee the ability to get the license but then use it within my tenant? That is the part I'm confused about.
Well, you know what? I thought exactly the same thing, but within hours of me posting this on LinkedIn, I had someone reach out to me that wanted to confirm that this was the case, because they had a use case where this was the feature they needed. Because of the way that they bill clients within their organization, and because of the way that the people using their tenant are employed or contracted by them, then actually they had the perfect use case for why they would want individuals to be paying for licenses themselves as opposed to paying for them centrally. So I thought exactly the same thing, but then someone turned up within mere hours saying this is the perfect feature for me. So I have to defer to Microsoft and say that in building this, presumably they came across some of these types of organizations, of which this contact of mine represented one, and found that this was a need that people had, and so Microsoft built it and they turned it on.
I'm gonna need more details on that. I'm gonna have to dig a little bit deeper on that one.
But I mean, the prevailing kind of message here is that where Microsoft turns on something by default and therefore gives access to it to everyone, that is disrespectful of the technical expert. But in the same way, my concern is that are those technical experts in general, if we think about outsourced IT or we think about small IT departments, so on and so forth, is there more incentive to catch the things that are going to be problems and turn them off? Or more incentive to get this great list of features they could turn on and analyze them and turn them on in a timely manner to the benefit of the organization? And I think that actually, on balance, the having to keep on top of it, the impetus of if you don't keep on top of this, something might go wrong, it puts a fire under people.
Yeah, I lean on what Microsoft currently does. They release it, it's turned on. And then if I'm a CIO somewhere, I'm staying on top of what's happening. Like, I want to know what's going on. Like, I always bring this up. When COVID was going crazy and the world was speeding up their use of tools, this included Microsoft Teams. When Microsoft Teams hit the scene, COVID is a special situation. You're not gonna have a global pandemic every couple of years, so this was different. But the sped up use of Teams had people not knowing exactly how the security worked, and it was as soon as you turned on a team, as soon as you created a team, you automatically got that SharePoint site, and then they shared the library, and anything you put inside of the library, the whole entire organization can get access to it if you don't make it private. I think that if you're a CIO, you need to know that. Like, this is just something you need to stay on top of and know. And I wouldn't put it on a CIO to know by themselves, but I think you need to stay educated with Microsoft. Have your team stay educated with Microsoft. Maybe make it even mandatory, because what can we control? We don't have the power to tell Microsoft, hey, turn this off and turn this on, or do business this way. We're at the mercy of what they do. And if you lean on, well, Microsoft, we know that Microsoft makes decisions like that. They will give your whole entire organization free licenses to Power Automate, Power Apps, SharePoint, and tell you to go. This is just what they do. And so, because knowing that, you have to stay on top of things, because that's what you're in control of. We're not in control of what Microsoft does. They're going to do whatever they do, but we're in control of how we react to it, especially if the organization pays for 365. So that's exactly. I lean on that.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. And I mean, in some ways, Thurman, that kind of freedom to get on with it that came from the pressures of COVID. Very, very few things fell apart because of that. There were lots of things in the world that were falling apart, but the security of our data in Teams wasn't generally one of them. And that is one of the things that would lead me to think that sometimes the risk versus reward balance is not in balance when it comes to some of these issues.
I do always think about, like, if there was like some guy somewhere that put some document in Teams that was like the worst document ever that nobody else should have seen. Every time I talk about that, I always think, I wonder if there's somebody somewhere that put some crazy document online, like talking trash about the bosses or something.
He was
or his co-workers.
He was patient zero of this problem, and since then, it's all we've been able to talk about, particularly when we've come into the Copilot timeline, from COVID to Copilot. So anyhow, we need to get out of here, Thurman. So we do. Before we do, why don't you tell everyone what you've got going on, how they can get in contact with you, and what they should know before the next episode comes out?
Well, how about you go to my YouTube channel, the SharePoint Help Desk. The last video I dropped was using the Avengers to explain. I used an Avengers mission to explain how SharePoint, how you can use SharePoint. Now, if you already are aware of the benefits of SharePoint, maybe this might not be for you, but your leadership or the actual business owner themselves, send it to them. Send it to somebody who needs to know how SharePoint works. I think I do a pretty good job of removing that technical mystery of it and just breaking it down in a very simple way. SharePoint Help Desk YouTube channel. What about you there, Nick?
Well, I would say, go and take a look at, well, you're already on my YouTube, so I won't promote that. I'm posting on LinkedIn every day because Thurman told me I had to. So go take a look at what I'm putting out on LinkedIn. I also have my course, which I think is still relevant, Responsible AI for Business Users. If you want to learn how to use AI safely and responsibly, then you can go and you see down below there will be a link to that. that. So go check that out.